This is about an antenna tuner kit that I put together when I was finding possible kits for Project 9 or for the club to build. An antenna tuner or matching network or matchbox or transmatch, antenna coupler or feed line coupler are all equivalent names. It's a device connected between a radio transmitter and the antenna, and is used to improve the power transfer between them by matching the load impedance of the radio to the combined input impedance of the feed line and the antenna. So the radio impedance at the output is 50 ohms and is looking to connect to something that is 50 ohms. This is your feed line, your coax, and the antenna that is at the other end. What it does is sometimes this is not exactly 50 ohms, it's not a good match, and not all the power goes out through the antenna. It produces that some power come back to the radio, and that is a bad thing. I found out this kit originally when I was looking for a project night and do it as a club activity. When I look at that time, it was around $70. I don't know if I flagged this in AliExpress or what, but a few weeks later, I got an email that the price was $35.19, which is really inexpensive for what this does. So I went and I ordered this. The price was very low and was very hard to pass on this kit. I was looking at something small. I have an antenna tuner here, an MFJ commercial unit, all connected here. And I don't like to plug and unplug my stuff to take it portable. You will see that when I talk about portable. What are the comparable commercial devices out of the market? As you can see, screen captures are all from Radio War. It range from $187 to $258, the commercial units. And I even pay more for mine, the one I have here, the MFJ. But I want to make a distinction on these units. They have something that's called memory. What that means is once you tune on a specific frequency, it will tune every time that you go back to that frequency or near that frequency, it will tune back very quickly because it remembers the settings of the coils, the inductance, and the capacitors that you used the last time. So all those and many more that are commercially available do that. This one that I put together, the kit doesn't have any memories. So it does the auto-tuning cycle every time that you auto-tune, but it's extremely fast. So I don't think that this is a problem. Also, it does from around 5 to 10 watts is the minimum that it needs to tune, up to 100 watts. So it's not recommendable for more than 100 watts. As you can see here, it's like many of these. Like this is for 20 watts only. This one here doesn't say how much power it is. And this one, it says from 0.1 to 125 and 100 watts on 6 meter. The good things of putting a kit together is you learn something. And this is what I like putting things together, building kits, or trying to do things on my own, is to learn something through the process. What I learned is how to use better my nano VNA. I don't have a slide or anything about the nano VNA, but you will see it later. The nano VNA is a small measurement device that you will see later in a picture I have somewhere that help you to tune your antennas or to do these kind of things. So I built this little adapter to connect to the nano VNA. Here you can see one of the coils that I was measuring that goes into the antenna tuner, and I was measuring this one. Here is a partial screen of the nano VNA. You can see here on the green circle is the measurement of that. It's supposed to be 1 microhenry, but this is 1.05. It's the closest that I could get. It's very sensitive, and you can adjust the value by spreading or putting together the turns here. Moving the turns on the toroid, you can adjust the inductance. You can see here on this part, I put in the picture below the first 3 relays. Those are the relays. Put all the coils after I measure all of them and make sure they are between the range that is expected by the circuit. And you can see the capacitors, they are SMD technology, and they are already soldered. Everything that is SMD, like the capacitor here, this is the microcontroller. It comes pre-soldered, so you don't need to worry about soldering those very, very small components. On the top one, you can see now I just put all the relays together. In here, I solder also this transformer, which is used to measure the power forward and reverse. I solder the capacitors, the voltage controller in here, and the remaining connectors. I did a smoke test. I connected a 9-volt battery. I found that with the 9-volt battery, the auto tuner works, but the battery doesn't have enough power or current when you have to turn all the relays on. I thought they wasn't working because I wasn't hearing all the relays clicking when I was doing a different type of test. But then I connected to my power supply, and then I noticed that the problem was the 9-volt battery. When I power on, the screen displayed the version 3.0, which is not the latest version. The current version of the software is 3.2, but you need a special device to program this chip. The same connection for the screen is the same connection that you can use to program this device. So that is the easy part, but you need this device to connect to the computer. And I look in Amazon, it's about $31 in Amazon.ca. So I didn't purchase this. I'm happy with the version 3. I don't have the need to update the firmware so far. It works well for me. I'm not going to be purchasing this because I don't do a lot of this programming, right?
If you're interested, I have those devices. I'm happy to lend them out to anybody who wants to update their firmware.
Thanks, Mike. This you need only to update the firmware or to customize the settings. Because, for example, if you want to tune with just 1 watt of power, you can do that. You go and you edit the one parameter on the screen, and then it will do that for you. Or you may also need to change some parameters if you use a different screen. To put the case together, I got this box from Amazon. It cost me an extra $16. I want something to be solid because I want to carry this with me when I'm portable. And when I mean I'm portable, I mean it's when I go to a park or I operate from my car or somewhere else. In my shack, everything is SO239 or PL259. I don't use any SMA type of connectors. The SMA type of connector is this one here. This connector here came with the kit, and I just used this connector to build the adapter. This connector is soldered here, and this part goes there. I want to use that. Instead, I use standard SO239 chassis connector. Also, my kit didn't come with any button. So those buttons, I have it on my spare parts, and I have a bunch of those. I use those buttons, and here you can see the hole I made for the screen. So you can see here, I soldered the connectors, the ground, the buttons. There are 3 buttons. The board, it comes with the connector on the top for only 1 button. The other 2 buttons, you can see the green and white, those are optional buttons, and you need to solder them on the back of the board. And that gives you 2 more functions, which I'm going to show you. I'm going to do a live demo at the end. It gives you the bypass and the out of function. The default button only does tune or reset. Here you can see now I put the labels. I print them on regular laser printer. I covered this part of the page with transparent shipping tape, and then I cut the labels and I put some glue on the back. So this is how I made my labels for the front and the back of the unit. Here on the screen, you can see how much power are you sending, how much is the standing wave ratio in here on the second line. On the third line, when it's tuning the antenna, you can see how much inductance is using and how much capacitance is using from everything that is available on the board. This model is 7x7. It means that it has 7 relays for capacitors and 7 relays for inductance, and it has 1 relay that's the bypass or not bypass. You can fully bypass the tuner if you want to.
Does it have the ability to reverse the order of the capacitors and inductors? To have the capacitor before the inductor or the capacitor after the inductor?
Yes, you can do that. I noticed that playing with the buttons that you can do that. And you see that the last 2 lines change the order on the screen. Also, you can put it in manual mode, and you can, with the bypass, the auto and the tune, using 2 buttons only, you can move up and down the values. This is how I tested that all the relays works. Because every time that you press the button, you have to hear a relay clicking. Alex asked me if it's possible to use this as a remote unit. Yes, you can build this to use as a remote unit. Of course, you have to remember that that's only 100 watts. You cannot use this with an amplifier. But you can get an optional bias T board that goes in the front, in your input. You will be sending through the coax the RF and the DC 12 volts that you need to operate the unit. This device here splits the RF and the DC and sends the DC here to the power connector. And of course, the RF goes here through the input. Also, you need an equivalent device like this that goes after your transceiver and you connect to your power supply. That way you send the power to the tuner as a remote tuner. Those are the options that Anthony found. Those are very good prices. If you don't want to put it together by yourself, you can purchase this already built. This is exactly the same way that I put it together. I use those connectors. I use 3 buttons. This one, even an extra power button, which I didn't put on my unit. I just plug or unplug the power connector to turn it on and off. This, by $100, is very cheap. The other option is to get the kit. This is version 3.1, so it's one version better than the one I had. This version comes with the power switch, 1 button, and the 2 big connectors, the UHF or SO 239 connectors, which I think are more appropriate for this device.
I think it comes shipped with 3.2 version software.
That's good, Anthony, thank you. The last option that Anthony sent is just the case only. You get a very nice case that you don't need to cut it by yourself, like with all the buttons and everything, but doesn't come with the connectors in the back. That case is around $34 shipped, so that's pretty good option. This is another option. You can see here, this has a different screen. It has an OLED screen, but it's smaller OLED screen.
Does it have any options for remote control altogether? I see you have remote power, and that's fairly easy. But say you were using this at a remote station. Is there any way to grab its characteristics via USB or anything else?
What I can tell you is you can probably do the buttons remotely. If you use a cable with 4 conductors, you can probably run the buttons remotely.
As part of my remote work here, I've found it very difficult to find ham station components that were actually built for Ethernet control. What I do find is exceptionally expensive.
Screen is driven by a serial connection that is very common on the microcontrollers. I think it's called I2C.
I remote completely from Florida, okay? I have a Flex, which makes it easy. But one of the simple solutions is right here, called a camera. It's a cheap $30 camera. I don't know if you can see it there or not because of the background, but anyhow, there's a camera sitting there and it points at my rotor controller, my remote ATU-100 Pro tuner, and my antenna switch. So it's back up to my remote in. And it does work, a cheap camera. You can see the output of the tuner, whether it's tuned or not.
It sounds as though we could probably put together a pretty good thing on a remote station design and probably merge a bunch of different kinds of ideas together. Because I don't know why we wouldn't be really heavily into it, because most of us are either living in apartments or we're living next to extreme electrical noise. So it would be a wonderful thing to put something up in God's country and have it remotely controlled. Then you don't care where you are in the city and the noise becomes irrelevant. You pick your location for S0 noise.
There is one thing to note legally. You have to have an advanced license to operate anything remotely.
This is the oldest radio that I have. And I say, if I'm going to test, I'm going to use the oldest that I have. The one I don't care if something happened, right? Let me see if I can put a very slow speed, the playback, because everything that happened on this video is very fast. I'm transmitting on the top of the band. Why I choose this one? Because I know that my antenna is not good in this frequency. My antenna is tuned better around 7,150. It's better in that area. I am transmitting. Then I'm going to move up to show the device. This is here. You can see I am putting 30 watts. And the SWR at that part of the band is 1.48. So I'm going to let the recording to go, 1.51. Keep holding. This is too slow. Let me increase the velocity, the speed a little bit. Do this. So you can see here, I'm testing between the radio and the antenna tuner with my MFJ SWR watt meter, and it's measuring less because here this one is giving me 1.8 SWR, is measuring less, and it also is measuring less power. This device is not precise, the other is not precise, there is some error somewhere, but more or less it's okay. What I'm gonna do now, I stop transmitting, as you can see there, Now what I do, I press that button that says tune. And when I do that, you see, it says tune in here. So now the device is ready for tune, but the device is in manual mode. In auto mode, you don't have to do anything of this. In manual mode, you transmit and this tunes automatically for you. I'm gonna transmit again and you will see how this tune. I transmit and now you have SWR 1.07. You can see here, effectively, this is what I'm having by this also SWR meter. This is the unit. The last thing I want to do is to show you, power this up here with the 9-volt battery. I'm gonna power the unit up. So you can see there it's showing the same thing I was showing on the screen, but I'm gonna show you something. If I press the bypass button, you see that line beside the W? This is the bypass mode. When the line is there, it's not using the tuner when it's in bypass mode. You see the underscore beside the W? If I press the auto button, you will see a dot. That means it's in auto mode. When the dot is there, that means it's in auto mode. This is the way that I use. I don't need to press the tune button to tune. I use in auto mode. So when it detects more than 5 watts, it's gonna auto tune. If I wanted to, I can, one quick touch, reset, you see? And a longer touch, it's set for tune. And that's it. There is no more things on this.
What does reset mean?
A reset, it sets all the inductances and capacitance to 0. Everything off.
And
Okay.
sorry, another question. When it's in bypass, what does that actually mean? Like, I understand it's not doing anything, but is there any sort of physical bypassing of the tuner? I mean, to reduce
Yes.
losses or anything like that?
It has 15 relays. It has 7 for the capacitor, it has 7 for the inductances, and has 1 for the bypass. What happens is you can have some settings on the tuner, and you can bypass the tuner, and the relays that you have connected for the inductances and the capacitor, they will not move, right? They will remain connected, but you are just bypassing the unit.
Hey, what's the difference between that package 1 and package 3, those two devices that are pre-built?
I don't know what the difference is between the two packages, just the packaging, and that's about it. One has all those fancy buttons, the other one has different case.
Has the what?
I believe that one of the other differences is that the second one of the two with the wider screen actually also has an inbuilt battery. But based on Pablo's comment about his 9-volt battery not really supplying enough power, I'd be concerned about that.
Yeah, but that second one is cheaper than the first one.
It is, yeah.
I think the other difference was that the screen is wider, but it was actually a bit smaller.
Yeah.
I think you said, Pablo.
This is smaller and wider, has 2 lines, the same information, but in 2 lines. This one has 4 lines. Those are very cheap. I purchased for my project those screens, and it's 3 for $10, these screens.
Okay.
So another question on this one, any of these ATU-100s, is what's the maximum SWR it can match? So like if you go and look at the LDGs, they talk about the fact they can match up to a 10-to-1 SWR. Is there any limit on this?
Imagine that this will do the same thing. This will do close to 10-to-1. I haven't measured that yet. Mike, this is a very good question, but I'm going to tell you something. The MFJ that I have here, this is the biggest tuner that you can get. It does 32-to-1.
It's just that you get some radios have their antenna tuner built in, but they can only do up to like 3-to-1.
Yeah, this is what they do, 3-to-1 do. Like the 9918 that I have here, the 7300 Icon, they all do 3-to-1.
The Elecraft that I have, and Brian has as well, it goes to 10-to-1, the internal KX3 tuner.
See, that's why I'm looking at this external tuner, because mine only does 3-to-1.
So I'm considering this, John, for my FT991, if I go portable with it, which is partly why I bought it. But if this tuner can do the 10-to-1 match, that's a good reason to pick it up.
Yeah.
Like how many people, do you know how many people are getting this package 1? or the one that Pablo's getting? I'm on the fence of purchasing one or not.
Related question, Anthony, maybe I misunderstand. What's the purpose of going through doing a group buy? Like, can we just buy them ourselves? Is there something I'm missing?
No advantage or disadvantage, just the wait time. Actually, the order I placed went between me and two other guys, and it took off last Thursday. When that comes in 30 days or so, it's coming overseas supposedly. There's no advantage. I'll send you guys the links to all the tuners in the group chat here.
This is the information I have. It's a lot of good information, but nowhere here is telling you how much it can match, which is a very important parameter on a tuner, right?
Yeah, I couldn't see it on any of the descriptions online to purchase it. They don't say that.
How long did it take you to build it, Pablo?
I started on Friday night and I finished on Sunday afternoon, but not the full time, right? Doing other things. It almost took more time for me to put together the case than the electronic part, you know. The case, it took a lot of time because this honestly is the best case and the best project I finished in my life. Because in other projects, I reuse plastic cases. The nice part to me was to learn how to measure with the nano VNA the coils and to build that adapter for the coils, because coils, toroid, balloons, anons, is stuff that we build all the times, and having a way to measure them and learn how to measure them, I think it should be part of our toolkit, right?
I do find it amusing that it's available on walmart.ca.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah, because a lot of Chinese stuff is available at walmart.ca.
Yeah, thanks. So they were talking about cases. Those who have access to a 3D printer, there's cases you can build for the ATU-100, a couple of different versions if you want to go plastic. So there's an alternative to trying to spend more time building the case than the electronics. And I can appreciate that because I punch a lot of my own panels.
The only thing I didn't use, one of the plastic cases I have here from other things that I tore apart, is because everything that is RF, I like to put it in a metallic case, but for this, I don't know if you really need it. I don't know if those LDGs are plastic or metallic. My MFJ is metallic.
You should always put a tuner in a metal case.
Yeah, and the LDGs are metal.
The two connectors on the back are grounded just by the case.
Why tuners in a metal case?
It prevents RF to go in and out.
Inductors, by their very nature, are going to give off RF.
Yeah, ICOM AH4 is plastic case.
True.
Yeah, but they've got shields over things inside, Anthony.
That's what I was thinking, is if you went with the 3D printed, you can buy that aluminum foil tape. I use it for different things in the house. You could actually line the inside of a PVC case in probably about 15 or 20 minutes. Punch out the holes, you'd be laughing.
You're talking about the duct tape, the metallic duct tape?
It's foil. It's like duct tape, but it's more of a foil.
The HVAC guys use that stuff.
You can buy it at Home Depot. I use it for my training AED units.